Good morning, it's October 21st. This is To My Liberal Friends, and if you enjoy the podcast, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. How many of you watched the interview between Bret Baier and Vice President Kamala Harris? It got pretty high ratings, but that does not mean everyone watched it. But I did, and there was something that Ms. Harris said that bothered me. Bret asked the Vice President, quote, "Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?" End quote. In the interview, she tried to buttress her economic plan with the following statement, quote, "My plan for the economy will strengthen the economy, as has been reviewed by 16 Nobel laureates, Goldman Sachs, Moody's, and recently the Wall Street Journal, which have all studied our plans and have indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy," end quote. I kept thinking about that statement, particularly how she referred to these Nobel laureate economists as proof that her plan was better. So I started looking at who these economists were. If you dig a little deeper, you'll find these expert economists are all ensconced in liberal universities. To name a few, they're Joseph Stiglitz of Columbia University, Peter Diamond, a professor at MIT, Christopher Sims, professor at Princeton, August Deaton, also at Princeton, Daniel McFadden, professor at University of California at Berkeley, and others, and I think you get the point. I should also point out that they signed this letter in June when Biden was still in the race, and so they were trying to support Biden against Trump. Not really Harris, and all of them are Democrats. And if you want to put some credence in those so-called experts, I would refer you to the letter signed by over 50 top intelligence officers who flatly declared that the Hunter Biden laptop was a fake and a product of Russian disinformation. Now, we now know they were full of it and only trying to make a political statement without any knowledge of real facts. Later information revealed how the now infamous and discredited Hunter Biden statement originated with a call from top Biden campaign officials and now Secretary of State Anthony Blinken to former Deputy CIA Director Michael Morrell to provide talking points and cover for the Biden campaign to discredit serious allegations about the Biden family influence peddling. Morrell's testimony also exposed that the goal of the statement was to aid President Biden in the final debate of the 2020 presidential campaign. So much for all the experts and Democrats like to quote. Well, Vice President Harris never really answers the questions, but rather goes to some canned response drafted by her staff. She rambles on, and in that statement she claimed that the Wall Street Journal basically endorsed her plan over Trump's plan. Well, I keep waiting for the fact checkers to parse that statement because it's not true. The Journal didn't endorse her economic plan. She's referring to a Journal news story that week that reported that 68% of 50 economists who were surveyed said prices would rise faster under Ms. Trump versus 12% under Ms. Harris. By 6-1, they said Mr. Trump would put upward pressure on federal budget deficits. But as I said earlier, the survey says more about the politics of these economists than the candidates' plans. The better way to compare the plans is to look at the actual fiscal and inflation record. And if you look at the record, you will find that what the inflation trends were during the Trump and Biden presidencies. Inflation averaged 2.1% annually between 2017 and 2019, compared to 5.1% under Biden. Inflation declined in 2020 amid the COVID lockdowns. Deficits totaled $2.4 trillion during Mr. Trump's first 3 years, all this pre-COVID, compared to $5.8 trillion during Mr. Biden's. Some of the $3 trillion in COVID spending during 2020 no doubt contribute to inflation, especially the $900 billion that December when the economy nearly rebounded to pre-pandemic levels. That bill was a bipartisan mistake. Then in March 2021, the Democrats stoked consumption even more with their $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan Act, even as states were lifting lockdowns and vaccines were being rolled out. The bill was largely composed of transfer payments, including $1,400 checks per person, a $3,600 per child tax credit, an extra $300 a week in unemployment benefits, and a 15% increase in food stamps, rental assistance, and more. Now, such handouts discouraged unemployment workers from going back to the workforce because they couldn't earn as much as they were sitting at home. This unprecedented helicopter drop of money, aided by the Federal Reserve, kicked off the highest inflation in 40 years. Those same economists who blessed all of that spending now say Mr. Trump is the bigger inflation threat because of his mooted tariffs, restrictionist immigration policies, and tax cuts, while they discount the cost of Ms. Harris' spending agenda. Today's Keynesian economists underestimate the growth dividend and overestimate the deficit impact of tax cuts. Meanwhile, they treat new spending as a free lunch. Take the Nobel Prize winning economists who Ms. Harris cited. They claimed in 2021 that Mr. Biden's $4.8 trillion Build Back Better plan, a cradle-to-grave welfare state, would ease inflation. Democrats passed a down payment on that plan, and guess what? Inflation soared. Here's the point of all this. Trump is no true fiscal conservative, as I would like him to be, but on deficits and inflation, his first-term record is far superior to the 4 years of Biden-Harris. Voters can decide if they want to trust the record, the real facts, or claims of liberal economists who've been spectacularly wrong in the past, just like those intelligence idiots. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening. And again, if you enjoy the podcast, on YouTube, hit subscribe. On TikTok, follow me. Thank you.